Now, we all thought that Diablo developers were working fervently. Are you okay with your sleeves?
Sorry, I'm just doing my sleeves right now.
Make sure they're alright. We all thought they were working fervently on the new Diablo Immortal.
We want to use mobile devices as the platform for a new Diablo.
We were all very excited for that, and I'm somewhat disappointed to hear the Diablo devs are taking their sweet-ass time
I know, what's going
on the development of such an exciting title.
I'm very excited for
because recently, one of the former lead Diablo devs, to be real, he's not actually working at Diablo anymore. We just wanted to throw
We had to throw that joke
about
in,
Immortal, really.
Okay, we had to, really.
One of the former Diablo devs, his name's Travis Day, has actually provided some advice to Bioware about some of the stuff that he's experiencing with Anthem and why it's maybe not the best game that's been released in a while. Maybe it has a few problems.
We have maybe made a few memes that say that it's not great right now.
Stop! He's already dead.
Maybe it's a rare example of a very experienced developer who's solved these problems before, talking to another developer publicly about these problems and how to solve them.
Publicly is a big thing, by the way.
It is, and it's all really good, by the way. Like, it was all in very good spirit, so there's no drama here. It's just really interesting to see this guy's perspective, given his expertise.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his feedback now.
So Anthem, everyone, it has released, okay? It has been going fantastically. If you go on Metacritic, okay, you will see that I think it's actually got a better score than Ocarina of Time now, if I remember correctly.
I do believe
yeah, I think it's like 60, okay? It's currently
right.
60. The user score is like 4.3 or probably 0.1 or something, who knows? But it's not really getting a great reception, okay?
It is not, sadly.
And it does need some people to weigh in and go, hey, this is what we think, you need to do with your game. A lot of YouTubers have done that, okay? Without naming some names, some YouTubers have definitely weighed in on how you can fix your game. But it's another thing entirely when a developer comes in publicly and positively does it. He doesn't constructively, he did it. Tells another developer, this is what you need to do to fix your game.
Help me. Help you. Help me.
Platform for a
Yeah, so it's a really specific circumstance because this guy, Travis Day, was one of the lead designers on Diablo 3 when they went through their Loot 2.0 revision and basically fixed the game. So if anyone doesn't know the history to this, there's a really good GDC talk which we'll link in the description below,
if I remember.
which must remember.
Of course.
Basically saying, look, Diablo 3 when it launched, it was fucked. Here's why it was fucked and here's how we fixed it. And anyone that played Diablo 3 at launch and then went through Loot 2.0 will attest to the fact that that game transformed completely top to bottom because they fixed every aspect of their loot game.
We played a lot of Diablo 3 when it came out. It was broken.
Yeah, super
and,
broken.
It did have a very bad reception in that regard. But if you do look at Diablo, you're right. By the end of the cycle, a lot of it was reborn. So if anyone can actually weigh in on this subject, it's people like the devs from Diablo that have gone into the trenches and completely rebuilt a game, got the community back on side, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it'd be different if some random dude comes out of nowhere, but again, these are the kind of people I think Anthem and Bioware need to listen to.
Yeah, so Travis Day went on Reddit, he made a post there, as I said, no drama here, he wasn't trying to be
beef.
Oh listen, Diablo was so good, you guys, if Cliffy B wrote this.
I would've loved
imagine
that.
if Cliffy B wrote feedback to Apex Legends.
That would've been so
guys,
good.
you've done some good work with Apex Legends here, but from my experience in Lawbreakers,
it's not failing quick enough, okay? That's dark.
That's super dark.
How many games have you seen come out in faceplant? Day one, not enough servers, you can't get online.
But so Travis Day came out very, very positive spirited post and very much I'm really enjoying the game, but I'm seeing it fall into some pitfalls that, previous games have fallen into, including Diablo, and I wanted to share my perspective. And there are 5 things that he talks about, which we'll go over very quickly. The first one, and I think most important one, is that, in Anthem, it was possible to get items that had sort of contradictory stats. So, for example, just to keep it simple, we won't talk about an Anthem specific example, but, let's say you got a wand in a game like Diablo, which can only be used by mages, but then it had strength on it, a stat that's entirely useless to them. Anthem is currently full of items like this.
I mean, a lot of games have done that, though. It's not the first game ever to have this problem.
No.
But I do think, after so many games that have come out and so many other examples, that kind of stuff just shouldn't be happening, you know? It's like if you have certain items, especially when you are getting to the end game, it should be very tailored to certain builds, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And to their credit, Bioware have already responded to, not necessarily this guy, but like they saw this was an issue in there.
Really.
Maybe. They're like, shit,
Probably.
Diablo's the Diablo devs said, so we better do something
Definitely.
now.
They were like, God, Diablo Immortal is going to be so successful, we need to make sure we're on the right side here.
Bioware's already made a change that basically tightens up their sort of stat pools, and now you will see a situation where items that drop in Anthem will have stats relevant to that item. Revolutionary idea, but at least it's
Crazy.
in now. Number 2, he comments that Stronghold difficulty is not consistent, even though the loot pools are consistent across the board. So what this means is there's actually 3 Strongholds in Anthem at the moment. They're kind of like dungeons, but they're like, one of them is really easy, one of them's harder, and one of them's harder again, which means that players are basically running the easiest one over and over again, because why would you run the harder one if all the loot is the same?
It's just, again, it's like a 101 thing. It's like, it's so simple.
Yeah.
As, like, of course, if you're going to, with any game, for God's sakes, the harder the difficulty, the more you expect in terms of reward. It could be XP, it could be loot, it could be just like a different experience. But to give people the same loot pool, regardless of where you go, it's just dumb. No one's going to go all 3 if they know one is the easiest.
Yeah, and he does sort of make this point himself that he's sort of playing through one of the strongholds at the moment, and he is experiencing what he basically says that I'm getting bored of it. You know, he's like, I can see it's the way to do it. It was a bit of a shady.
Yeah,
of all the comments,
That's probably the shadiest of the shade.
it was, but like it was still a very well-intentioned comment. But he was basically saying, because I'm incentivized to continue to run this one stronghold because it's the easiest and because there's a shared loot pool across, then that's what I'm going to continue to do. And it does contribute to player burnout in general.
Yeah.
So that was another thing.
Another point that he made was targeted farming. So there's no real ability for you to go to certain places and farm certain items. Now, I think that's an interesting point because we've seen in other games that if you can go certain places, it can kind of break the system in some respects. Like, you know, some certain areas that you can farm heaps of gold, or certain areas that you can farm extremely powerful items, and then you only go into those one areas and don't experience the rest of the world. So I don't know if I completely agree with that particular point.
What would you know, Sam?
What would I know?
You didn't reinvigorate Diablo 3.
Jesus Christ, this guy knows everything. But I think some people out there will agree that if you create certain areas that have the best gear, then sometimes people are always going to gravitate to certain areas.
It's not the best gear. It's about saying, like, if you really wanted a specific, like a sniper rifle,
Sure.
for example, there should be some place where sniper rifles are more likely to drop, right? So
Yes.
therefore, players can somewhat control what they're farming for, which means that they're not just throwing themselves at any activity and hoping for the best. They feel like they've got some agency. Sort of talks about player agency,
Yeah.
there, which I personally agree with.
Yeah, but I just think I can see why they would have gone down the route of make everything drop in a huge area, because then of course it'll make the player incentivized to explore a great area.
Yeah.
So I see both sides there. I don't know what that was. What the? Regardless, that's what he was putting forward as another point.
Yeah, and the final one he talked about was difficulty scaling. There are 3 endgame difficulties: Grandmaster 1, Grandmaster 2, Grandmaster 3. Grandmaster 1,
So great names, by the way. Like,
right.
very incredible.
Grandmaster. You sort of jump up from hard into Grandmaster 1, and it's very jarring at first, but eventually you get the gear and it becomes very doable and it's fine, no problem. Then GM2, it never becomes worthwhile because that jump it's always, even when you're fully geared, it still feels like you're putting in more effort than you should have to compared to just speed running through GM1 content. And the GM3, forget about it, there's no point. There's not enough reward at those higher difficulties to justify all of the extra pain you have to go through. So he's saying that overall your difficulty scaling is not clear, it's not consistent, it's not smooth enough. And he's saying that there's some smoothing to be done there, which again, absolutely agree with that myself, having, you know, played the endgame now for a little while. There's no way I would touch GM2, it's just not worth it. Just farm GM1 over and over again, that's it.
I think that, you know, when you are implementing different types of difficulties, there has to be it sometimes has to be more than just the loot too. It should be like the experience can fundamentally change, and if it's changing in such a way that, like Halo, for instance, I don't know if a lot of people remember this. I certainly remember this. If you went to like what was it, Nightmare mode, or with the top legendary mode of Halo, most of the time you just sat behind a goddamn rock and like tried to. That destroys the experience.
Maybe you did, Sam, if you were shit.
I did that. So what I'm saying is, when you destroy the experience by making sure it's super hard, there's a way of doing that, and they've obviously just need to find the balance of that.
So as I said, Bioware have already announced a change responding to not this feedback, but general feedback. They've also they're going to remove some of the crappier items from the drop pool, which is great news because you were doing high level content and then you were getting green and white items, which are totally useless to you. They are clearly listening to feedback from the community on how to improve their game. But I think personally, it's just weird that we're in this situation now. And I think I made this comment in my review, which is like, we've got a good sort of 7 years or so of looter shooter genre experience when it comes to like how this genre should perform. And then before that, we've had looter games for years before that. You know, games like Diablo, for example, which are 15, 20 years old now. And they had their own lessons about how to approach loot in video games. World of Warcraft has its own lessons. Like, loot games are not a new phenomenon. And it seems like Anthem just waded into this genre, having no awareness whatsoever of everything that had come before it. And that's what makes Anthem particularly frustrating for me, because I'm like, listen, this is 2019. Why the fuck is this shit still happening when it's basic stuff? And like, Travis's points here, they're all really relevant, but there's a lot of people out in the gaming community that could have told you this stuff because they've been playing these games. Sure. Why did Bioware implement this stuff in this way, given how basic some of this stuff is?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger takeaways for me, though, is at least they are listening. At least they are trying to implement. It's
not like they have a choice.
It's not like
sure. Like, sorry, we're going to keep all our broken items.
There are certain games out there, like Fallout, that like barely listened, barely responded. You know,
they do. They have a very successful banning campaign.
Of course they do. Okay, if you play 900 hours, you're banned.
Right.
Okay, no, but it's good to see that they are trying to implement changes. I do still think it's a 6-month road ahead. But you're right. I mean, there are so many games that have come on before. And it is so basic. I mean, difficulty in strongholds should equal better loot. It's like it's 101 shit. But it's relatively simple things to fix, I think. I don't think there's a huge coding thing. I just personally think if it's already a pooled item system, all they really need to do is break that up into a 3-tiered system and then put them in individual areas of the stronghold. That's a simple way to fix it. I know it's one particular thing that we're talking about, but what I'm saying is, these points, they can be fixed,
These points can be fixed. It took Diablo a year to fix itself, and it was, I think, far more developed in terms of its suite of enemies and its combat mechanics and all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
Anthem
it was more enjoyable.
Anthem, it has different environments. Anthem has more problems than just this loot game as well, and that's another thing to keep in mind. So, either way, this was an interesting circumstance. Travis Day's feedback was really relevant. It's one of those rare examples where you see someone with deep expertise speak to another developer in a public forum about like, hey, here's how I would fix your game, and
that can be tricky.
It can be, but I think he landed it well. Yes. It was very positive engagement. So anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the story. We'll keep you up to date on all the Anthem goss. Stick around and
see you tomorrow, probably. See you, fam.